Hola! Do you know what today is? It is Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead. It's a Mexican holiday, and it's one of my favorite holidays. It's a day when you honor your ancestors. Most people have what's called an ofrenda, where you put pictures of your ancestors that have passed. You light some candles, and you make traditional foods. You can either offer them foods that they liked, or even better is that Mexico has a lot of traditional foods that they usually make to celebrate. Well, a lot of those foods don't lend themselves to my diet right now, but I did find two dishes in particular that are perfect, very calorie friendly, light, delicious, easy to make, and pretty perfect for where I'm at right now with the types of foods that I'm allowed to have leading up to my surgery. So let's make them together. How do you feel about flan? Good, right? We feel good about flan. Yeah, me too. So one of the most traditional things, of course, for Dia de los Muertos is flan. Also, they make a dish, a pumpkin dish, where they just bake pumpkin and caramelize it. And of course, I'm not going to do that. We had enough caramel last week. But I thought, let's make pumpkin flan. And there's actually a very easy, really delicious Weight Watchers recipe for pumpkin flan. And it doesn't really come out tasting like flan. It comes out tasting more like pumpkin pie without a crust. You're gonna love it. Let's make it. Alrighty, the first ingredient is sugar. Not a lot of sugar though. You know how they normally tell you in recipes to pack your brown sugar? This one says unpacked. So it's half a cup of unpacked brown sugar. Okay. And then we're going to get into spices. So I have my fancy, look at these old school measuring spoons that I have. I think these were my mom's. Okay, so half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves. Okay, ground cloves. I like sniffing on them. They remind me of those cigarettes we used to smoke in high school. Okay, 1/8 of a teaspoon of that. Remember those cigarettes? Ugh, terrible. Okay, and then here's a little secret thing. I'm gonna wipe this little spoon off because now I need 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne, which is really essentially a pinch, and it's really nice in there. It adds a nice little tiny, tiny hint of heat. See, I'm just gonna do a tiny little amount there. Okay, there are your spices. Now we're gonna whisk them together. Whoops, I'm going all over the place. Now we're going to add a little salt. Also 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is nothing. This one I'm going to measure not over the bowl. Remember that I was cooking that one thing and I said, go for it, but I'm not going to. This is a 1/4 teaspoon measure. There is no 1/8 teaspoon measure in this set. So I'm just doing half of that. Salt. Okay. Whisk it up. Just get it incorporated. And now all the wet stuff. 1 can of pumpkin, 15 or 16 ounces, depending on the can. They usually come in 15 or 16 ounces. Get that whole baby in there. That's the whole key right there. Now we're going to measure other liquids. We need a cup of fat-free evaporated milk, okay? That's what I've got here, ready to go. Here's my cup. Perfect. 1/4 of a cup of orange juice. Look at this little tiny bottle of orange juice. So cute. Let's shake it. 1/4 of a cup. Perfect. Okay. And now an ingredient that I'm not a huge fan of, but I use it when I need to. And it's definitely a calorie saver and keeps things light and is handy to have on hand. And this is egg beaters. It's fat-free egg substitute. You need 3/4 of this, 3/4 of a cup rather. Okay. You could, 1/4 of a cup of this equals 1 egg. So you could put real eggs in there if you want. But again, we're keeping this calorie friendly as well. And then we're just going to mix all of this up and get it nice and incorporated together. It doesn't take a lot of stirs to get this all blended together. Nice and easy. Okay, all of the ingredients are incorporated. Let's put the kettle on. Put kettle on, as they say, Manchester. Of course, I have a proper English kettle. And now, I don't know if you noticed, but I have my fancy vessel that I mixed this all in. We're going to get the ramekins out. Look, I have them ready for you. Look at how pretty. Aren't they pretty? So now we're going to fill our ramekins. The water's boiling for a very important reason, and we're going to just start filling them evenly. Remember, I always say, don't fill them too high. You can always even off. Okay, now my water has boiled in my fabulous kettle. You're basically doing a water bath, hot water bath. You fill them to about 1 inch high. This is how they cook perfectly, no burning. Water bath, hot water bath. Oh, it's taking about the whole kettle. Beautiful. Okay, so now I preheated the oven to 350. This is a very dangerous thing, so I'm going to open the oven first and then come back and grab this to put it in. Because it is filled with hot boiling water. So nice and careful. Okay, so now those are in the oven and they're going to stay there for 45 minutes. Basically until they're firm, maybe a little puffy. I usually check on them halfway through, but they take about 45 minutes, again, at a 350 oven. While those are baking, now we're going to make the main meal. There are several dishes that they make in Mexico. They make tamales, they make an adobo chicken, all kinds of yummy things. And or mole, chicken mole, which all of those things were a little bit rich and a little bit not on my plan right now. But one thing that stuck out that I love already, that is very traditional, is chicken tortilla soup. I love chicken tortilla soup. And soup is just such a good, this is the time of year for soup. It's such a great hearty thing to make and to have on hand. And I really love to make homemade soups. You'll probably see me make more down the line, but let's make chicken tortilla soup. First thing we're gonna do is prep our onions, garlic, and then our chicken. So first thing we've got here is our onion, a medium-sized onion. You know how I love chopping onions. They make me cry. Not really. Okay, so the onions are chopped. I'm just going to stick them off to the side. Now, to keep it muy auténtico, I'm going to actually use real fresh garlic. I usually cheat and use that jarred stuff, but it felt like the wrong thing for this. So we're going to use fresh garlic. It calls for 2 cloves of garlic. These are tiny, so I'm going to do a third one. You can never have too much garlic in my book. Okay. And in case you don't know this trick, this is the main trick to peeling garlic. It's going to get crushed anyway, so you take your knife, smash it. Comes right out of the skin. Look at that. Look, this one has a little baby one on the side. I love that. See how I have basically 2 cloves. It's just they're in pieces. And then just chopping them up. Nice and minced. You can add salt to your garlic to help it, to chop it easier. I don't really need to do that right this minute. Again, this is going to be adding to the flavor of the soup. Probably going to melt and disappear anyway. Okay, so there's my garlic. And the last thing we need to prep is the chicken. However, I already prepped it. Here's a fun fact when you make chicken tortilla soup. Most recipes, they actually encourage you to use pre-bought or pre-cooked chicken, meaning if you roasted a chicken, or I was actually going to get one of those roasted chickens at the supermarket because those have lots of flavor in them and it's a great dish for leftovers. Unfortunately, I couldn't get one of those, so I baked 3 boneless chicken breasts to be ready for the show. I did them in my toaster oven. Look at them, they're so pretty. And now I'm going to just do a light shred. And now I'm just going to do a shred. Now, shredding is always tricky. The best way to shred is really with like forks pulling it apart or whatever. Everyone has their own methods. I like to do kind of like a rough chop. And then make sure gristle and stuff like that is off of them. These are pretty lean, so I'm not too worried about it. So you always want to cut against the grain of the chicken breast. Okay, I'll do a sort of a rough chop to get it going. Again, this is a pound. Look at these are cooked perfectly. In my toaster oven too. And now I just take my hands. I take my hands and I just shred them up. It's kind of fun. It gets like aggressions out, and I don't know. It's like playing with your food. Just kind of give it a good, you know, you don't need to have the hunks don't need to be even. You can have some big hunks, some little hunks. So completely messy hands. Chicken is ready to go. So these are the only things you really have to prep as far as cutting and chopping. Now we're going to put this whole thing together. This is so easy. You're going to love this. I've got my big pot going here. We're going to get it on medium. Okay. Got a little California olive oil. Just maybe the equivalent of like a tablespoon in there. You don't need much. I'm going to let that get hot. About 5 minutes. Okay, the pan's nice and hot. I separated the onions and the garlic out. Normally you wait to put the garlic in, but in this case you don't really have to. Oh, hear that? Make sure all of that's in there. Nice and fragrant. Just let that cook for maybe a few minutes. It doesn't have to cook as long as you normally would to caramelize the onions. You just want to get the flavors coming out. And now, tomatoes. These are some really lovely Muir Glen organic diced tomatoes. I'm going to dump that whole. This is a big can, 28 ounce can. Hear that? A can of red enchilada sauce. This is a 10-ounce can. Get all the good juices in there. Okay. 2 cups of water. Basically, you're just going to start throwing everything in here. It's the easiest, I told you. Now we're going to measure. You want 2 cups of chicken broth. I like really good low sodium or no sodium chicken broth because you want to adjust your flavors yourself. Or saltiness, rather. 2 cups of chicken broth. So now is when I like to add the spices. This is really, really simple. So we have cumin. We're going to do a teaspoon of cumin. Nice even teaspoon. A teaspoon of chili powder. Oh, this one doesn't want to pour it. Shouldn't be pouring this over the pot, but I'm doing it. I'm living dangerously. That's about a teaspoon. And now my favorite part, because I get to use my molcajete, which is a very traditional Mexican kitchen tool. And you take, basically you need about 1/4 teaspoon of bay leaves, and that's probably about 2. Let's see. We'll see. I'm going to put these in my molcajete. Okay, this took a lot of, I don't think I really realized how bay leaves smell. Okay, so we're just going to dump that in there. Lovely. Okay, give it a stir, give it a whirl. By the way, this recipe also calls for some dried cilantro. I don't love cilantro, but actually on a recipe like this, it's better to put a little fresh on in the end. So we're going to do that instead. Now, 1 little can of diced green chiles. These are fire roasted. I like those. It's like a little 4-ounce can. Little guy. Done. Lots of cans of stuff here, okay? And then I already opened these and rinsed and drained them. This is basically 1 can of cannellini beans and 1 can of black beans because that's very authentic, okay? They're all rinsed and ready to go. Put them in there. And my favorite is Trader Joe's whole kernel corn. Now, normally you would rinse corn, but I don't know if you know this, but the Trader Joe's corn is really good. The juice that's in there is really good, so we just dump the whole thing right in. So now we're going to do a little salt and pepper. And just give it about 7 or 8 turns. We're going to adjust the flavors at the end. And also, this isn't a very spicy dish. You can make it spicier, this soup, but I don't like it overly spicy. You can always add. You can't take away. And last, but certainly not least, the shredded chicken. And remember, I used my hands to shred it. Make sure that I'm not going to drop any. And put all your chicken in. The big hands. Here you go. Okay. Give it a mix. Look at all that yumminess in there. It's so hearty, so good for you, so light. So now you just cover it and let it come to a boil, right? It's not like medium high-ish. And then once it comes to a boil, turn it down to low and let it simmer for maybe a good 30 to 40 minutes, and then you're good to go. The time has come, my friends, for the pumpkin flan to be coming out of the oven. Look. Little pumpkin babies. Oh my God, they're so lovely. So now, the very, very careful part is you have to take these ramekins out of that hot water bath because that water is crazy hot. I use these tongs that have the rubber on the ends, right? Just very carefully, I put them on a cookie sheet to cool off. Okay, so now I'm gonna dump this water. We're gonna let these cool for quite a while, probably about 45 minutes or so, and then we can enjoy them after we have our soup. It smells so good in here. I don't mean to brag, but it smells so good. We are ready to serve our soup. I have gotten some accessories ready ahead of time, some avocado, some cilantro, some light sour cream, and some tortilla chips, okay? And we're going to spoon it up and doctor it up and enjoy it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It is so delicioso. Okay. I like lots of broth in mine. And again, this is so healthy, so hearty. It's like good for your bones. Okay, so again, this is a wind down for me. I'm getting ready to not be eating like this anymore, although this is very light, but I won't be able to eat tortilla chips and things like that. But we're going to doctor it up now. Again, a little dollop of light sour cream. You can also use non-fat yogurt. I'm gonna still eat sour cream while I can. And I like to do a little bit of cilantro. I don't love cilantro, I'm not gonna lie, but in this soup, it works. As a layer of a flavor, it works, okay? And then I've got some fresh avocado. You could put cheese in here. You don't need it. You really don't. I mean, you're welcome to shredded, cheddar or Mexican blend. I'd rather have the wholesome, healthy avocado, to be honest, okay? So now last but not least, tortilla chips. So I'm gonna take about 5 of them, give them a crumble, very simple, and I'm going to taste it. I wanna get a little of that sour cream in there. That's the cooling part, a little avocado. Oh my God, this is the perfect bite. Amazing. So good for you. You gotta make it. Last but not least at all is our pumpkin flan. Flan. Okay, so your little baby ramekin there. Now you could eat it just like this. And look at my little tiny spoon. They're telling us that we should start eating with smaller utensils to get used to eating less stuff. I just like to eat it when there's not as much of it because it makes it last longer. And then, I know this is kind of like cheating using prepared whipped cream. I like to make my own, but this is always good to have on hand. And you don't need a lot of it. And we're going to take a tiny, tiny bit and just top it off. Just a little, see? That's not a lot of calories. That's not a lot at all. But again, this is a treat. I'm not gonna be eating this stuff for very long. Let's try it. Oh yeah, so good. Basically tastes like pumpkin pie without crust. And you feel that, you can taste that heat in there, that like little kick from the cayenne, which is very traditional Mexico. For those of you who know, they like to put heat in things that you wouldn't expect to be hot, like chocolate and hot chocolate and I don't know, I guess it's pumpkin flan. But this is very, very good. And this is really low cal, low sugar, doesn't taste overly sweet at all. So there you have it. That is my Dia de los Muertos celebration chicken tortilla soup and the pumpkin flan. And we're going to start winding down on some of these eats, but nonetheless, enjoy them while I can. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.